This is Redhouse Mobile Home Park at White Hill in Hampshire. It used to be a bustling community of 124 homes, but over the past 3 years, 76 of the owners have sold up and moved out. Many of them were vulnerable and elderly, and they sold their homes at knockdown prices to the new site owner.
Excuse me, are you Mr. Wenman?
That's right.
This is the owner, Michael Wenman. When he bought Redhouse in 2001, he wanted to remove all the old homes as quickly as possible.
The site's come to its end. The idea is they take a bit of compensation and leave. We take over the breaking up of the home. I think what we anticipate to be left is very, very few. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mr. Wenman's motive is simple: money. If everyone leaves, he can fill their plots with new mobile homes and sell them at a huge markup. In theory, the residents are protected because they have a legal right to stay. But that hasn't stopped Mr. Wenman removing homes. Somehow, he persuades people to sell their properties for a fraction of their true value.
Some people in the beginning sold their homes to Mr. Wenman for as little as £1,000. This home here went for £1,000, and so did this one. Then the prices gradually increased to £3,000. This lady had £3,000, and this was my sister-in-law's home, and she received £3,000. The people that left in the very beginning, they were extremely worried, and they just left with nothing.
One of the first to leave was Dick Barton.
Hello, Liz.
Hello, Dick.
I haven't seen you since my birthday party.
He left his friends on the park because Mr. Wenman told him his home was in a poor condition and that it would have to be removed. Dick was 94 at the time.
He said, I don't care what. He said, if I want to move you, I'll move you. And I'll give you rent for it every day. It was threats all the time, Liz.
Yeah, I know, Dick.
And at my age, I just didn't want it.
No.
He's still going to a lady that is living on her own. He's still doing the same to her. Just recently.
It's frightening them.
Yeah.
So I couldn't stand the harassment anymore. It was on my mind all the time, and it was getting me down.
He picked on the elderly, the people that he saw as being vulnerable. The elderly, perhaps disabled, families with children, people that he could see that he'd have an effect on, people that were nervous. You would be amazed at how vulnerable we all are. I've laid awake worrying about it in the early days, and it does have an effect on you. People have had to take tranquilizers and had sleepless nights when he's come round and spoken to them.
These were the happiest days here. And when you know, it upsets me now, but it's no use me breaking down at my age.
Dick's now 97. He's come back to show his support for the people still living here.
3 days after.
Well, it was a nice, comfy little home for you, wasn't it?
It was.
And it was your own, I think.
The godsend to me was having your own key.
Yeah.
And being able to come in and do as you like.
Yeah.
And look at it now. I just cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. All that side was... I spent a fortune on the garden. And there you are, that was him. Quite frankly, I'm controlling myself because I could break down. I really could break down. The time and money I spent on it, it was my home. And God knows I worked hard to get my own home.
Dick still owned his home when he left, but the day after he moved out, the property was demolished, with some of his possessions still inside. Mr. Wenman later paid him just £500 for his home.
They went. They went. I never saw the bed. I never saw the chest of drawers, but my washing machine was in the outhouse there, in the shed. All that went. I never saw, I suppose he included that in the £500 he bloody gave me. And that was it.
Most of the homes that Mr. Wenman bought were demolished on the park. Sometimes children joined in the demolition work. The site soon resembled a breaker's yard, which made life even harder for the residents who chose to stay.
It's like somebody ripping the heart out of the community. 3 years ago, this was a bustling, full park, full of families. And now we're down to almost nothing. Empty spaces, desolation and high fences.
Sue watched her neighbour's home being demolished just feet away from her own front door.
It actually fell across and into my driveway with the roof. It was then left like that, in bits, for 4 or 5 days, all open to the children playing on the park during the summer, with the electric still running, with the strobe on the meter still going, so we knew this was happening. Really very dangerous.
Now, you may think it's strange that he's buying homes like this one and breaking them up, but actually it makes perfect financial sense. You see, with all of the homes gone from this side, he can move on more than 100 new homes, and they can sell for up to £150,000 apiece. Mr. Wenman tells residents that their homes have to be moved to lay new sewers, and that when they are moved, they'll simply fall apart.
He would say, I'm developing the park, I need to move your home in order to develop the park, and unfortunately your home is an ageing condition that won't allow for it to be moved. It will fall to pieces if I move it. And if that wasn't effective, he would then add to that, and if necessary, I'll move it around the park 5, 6, 7 times until such times it does fall to pieces when I move it.
If residents refuse to sell, Mr. Wenman makes repeated visits. These can be late at night, and some people feel intimidated. Several made statements alleging harassment, but East Hampshire District Council decided there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute Mr. Wenman.
I felt I didn't want to go out while he was on site. He scared me a lot. He used to be waiting for me on the corner when I was delivering the papers. He didn't talk, just looked most of the time. And I'd just walk past him and ignore him, and he didn't like that at all. It makes you feel ill when he does things like that. I used to be frightened of him, but I'm not anymore. I'm used to it. So there's no way he can frighten me off sight. It doesn't matter what he does. I'm staying. It's my home.
Roger Russell was physically attacked by Mr. Wenman's warden. The warden was later convicted of assault.
Well, shortly after Mr. Wenman bought the park, I was walking on the park with my son, and I was approached by Mr. Wenham's new warden, who asked me what I was doing. I told him it was none of his business and proceeded to walk down the park, in which he chased after me and beat me and my son up. We then ran into a neighbour's address, and he proceeded to follow us into there and do the same again.
Mr. Wenman also introduced a new set of park rules, and anyone who didn't follow them was threatened with legal action and eviction, and they were for the most trivial of things: blocked gutters or rust on the chassis of the mobile home. He also ordered all of the residents to knock down any porches, extensions or walls they built around their homes.
Hiya, Rob. Let's go!
People couldn't afford to go to court, so they simply gave up. Sandra Alfick has watched her neighbours cave in one by one.
Couple lived at the back of us. They got a bungalow. My former neighbour and friend, she went. She couldn't fight him. The double unit up the top there, John and Rain, they went a fortnight ago Monday. They went. Actually, on the Friday before they went, John and Rain stopped and we had a natter, and Rain said, I don't know about you, she said, but it doesn't feel like home anymore.
When Leanne McNeese was threatened with eviction, she decided to fight Mr. Wenman through the courts. After 3 years of costly legal action, she finally won an important test case.
We bought our home because we couldn't afford to buy a house, and so this was our first step up onto the property ladder. Now, at the end of 5 years, you're not going to walk away from something that you've invested in. You know, that was our way then to buy a house. and we're not legally minded, and obviously you're having to answer all of these legal questions again and again and again, and it's not just one question. There's one question, and then the next day there'll be another question, and the next week there'll be another 5 questions to answer, and it obviously is quite stressful, time-consuming and costly.
In his written judgment, the judge questioned Mr. Wenman's motives in bringing this case.
I find it extremely hard to see how these proceedings can have been brought in good faith by the claimant. There is evidence that I accept, not least from the council and its correspondence.
The judge concluded that Mr. Wenman was deliberately making life difficult for residents by leaving rubbish all over the park.
Calculated to make life difficult and unpleasant for the remaining occupiers.
Despite the court judgment, people are still leaving.
That was our home for 20 years. It's 20 years down the drain. Now it's going to go to rack and ruins, like the rest of it. Sheer waste of money. I'd just like to know how he gets away with it all, personally.
I'll be sad to go, I will. Well, I am sad to go, but I'm getting even sadder if I stay on.
Something's falling down in there.
It is affecting the wife's health and my health. It doesn't feel like home anymore. It just feels like somewhere to lodge.
Colin and Sandra's home is worth about £25,000, but they've accepted £5,000 from Mr. Wenman. Like so many owners before them, Colin and Sandra have sold out cheaply. They say they didn't have any choice, as Mr. Wenman won't allow people to sell their homes.
Lifesaver.
He started interfering with sales when he was still finalising the purchase of the site.
Sorry.
Leanne had agreed to sell her home for £28,000, but Mr. Wenman soon put her buyer off.
She approached the then site manager, who at the time was showing Mr. Wenman around the site, and Mr. Wenman actually said to her that he wouldn't allow the home to be sold to her, and he was going to remove it from the site anyway, which obviously put her off as a buyer. After our buyer had been put off, we invited Mr. Wenman to come round and explain to us why we weren't being able to sell our home. He then offered us £2,000 for our home. Bearing in mind we had an offer for £28,000, we really weren't going to accept that.
9, 10, 11.
Leanne is not alone. Other residents tell exactly the same story. Mr. Wenman first discourages the buyer and then makes a lower offer himself. Under the Mobile Homes Act, owners have the right to sell their homes. But it's not going to be very easy when signs like this one warn any potential purchasers that they have to speak to Mr. Wenman first. Now, legally, he can only block a sale under reasonable grounds, certainly not because he's got ideas about buying the home more cheaply himself. We want to see how Mr. Wenman treats potential purchasers. So we're going to pretend that we're interested in buying this home.
Have often thought about moving and would love to move, but since Mr. Wenman's taken over, he made it very plain and very clear that our homes were worthless and we wouldn't be able to sell. So in that respect, we had no choice but to stay.
Now, an expert has told us that this home will be worth £50,000 on a decent park. Because this is Redhouse, we've decided only to offer £25,000. Surely even Mr. Wenman would agree that Anna's home is a bargain at that price.
Whoever comes to buy the thing is going to get told the same as you. You're not getting anything for your money. What you're getting is nothing. When we go to move it, it's not moving. It's not going anywhere. Where it's going is straight in a bin. We're talking about that home being broke up. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about...
Really?
Yeah.
What, destroying it?
Yeah.
Well, why is that? Why would you want... Because it looks in good nick to me.
Are you a surveyor then? No, this is what I'm trying to say.
Well, our real surveyor says Anna's home is structurally sound.
Unfortunately, not like an house. People keep talking about it's my home. It is their home, but it's not a house. It's not bricks and mortar. It's a wooden box which deteriorates. I'd give it to you. When I own it, I'd give it to you. It cost me £1,000. I've got to have a bin in and a JCB to break it up and throw it in the bin.
I presume you're going to give us something to move off, are
yeah,
you?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, but he's
I was going to give her 25 grand.
Yeah, well, you'd be in some serious trouble, I'm telling you.
Our undercover home buyer is left in no doubt that it would be a disastrous investment. 5 days later, Mr. Wenman went to see Anna and made his own generous offer.
He said, well, if I make you an offer, he said, it's a very good offer. It's the best offer that I've made for these homes. He said, normally, he said, because yours is worth nothing, he said, I'm making a very good offer. He said, I'll give you £10,000. I thought, whoopee, you know, wow.
Every time someone leaves the park, Mr. Wenman makes a potential profit. He can move on a new mobile home and make thousands.
Time to go.
Let's go 20 years down the drain.
Well, that's good. Go on then, there you go.
The government is planning to give mobile homeowners more protection, but by then, Mr. Wenman could be a very rich man. Mr. Wenman wouldn't talk to us, and he didn't answer any of our questions. So I'm going to pay him a personal visit. Mr. Wenman, can I ask you a couple of questions, please? My name's Chris Packham, I'm from the BBC's Inside Out. I'd like to ask you, how much do you stand to profit from the redevelopment of this site? Is it true that you bought someone's home for £500? Have you got anything to say to the people whose lives you've made an abject misery, Mr. Wenman? Is it true that you've blocked the sale of people's homes and then attempted to buy them much more cheaply? Well, it appears that Mr. Wenman has got nothing to say about any of those allegations that I was putting to them, which is a shame, really, because he's made life such a misery for all the people that are living on this park. Anyway, moving swiftly on. You would never think there was a chance for a commoner like me to become one of the aristocracy. But in fact there is, but only if I win a somewhat strange and ancient sporting contest.